Hello, everyone. For those who can hear me and you're on the Zoom meeting, welcome. We have Mike Gayle. So you are currently all on mute. If you wanted to unmute yourself and say hello,
Hi, Bonita.
Please do. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Bonita.
Hi, Patricia. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. We have Douglas. Hi, Douglas. I see you're keeping it safe for us. That's good. How's everybody doing? Happy Friday. Oh, look who we have there. Hello.
Hi, Bonita.
Hi, Doug. Is that Douglas? Is that you? We have Wilson. Hi, Wilson. I think we have somebody
Hello. Yeah.
from Nova Scotia too, which is really cool. So the start time for the Zoom meeting is 11 a.m. We're just waiting for everybody to come on. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Hey, Dan.
Mikey, how are you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, buddy.
Nice. So thanks everyone for coming. We're waiting, like I said, we'll start at 11 a.m. And just part of the reason why I wanted to start this sort of program or this initiative is that I talk to so many people out there, and especially now, as I'm working from my home office, it's a lot of conversations, and I just find so many people have such valuable information, and to be able to get that information out, it's kind of hard to do because as a previous dental technician, I know you're working in your clinic, in your labs, and it's really hard to get that information because, you know, we're busy during the day. So I wanted to create a place where people could come and have real conversations about real challenges and their experience, and, you know, just really keeping it real is what I wanted to do. And that's the goal of this show today and moving forward. The people that I will be inviting on the show, or perhaps if some of you want to share a journey that somebody would benefit from, or even if you were to do it all again, what would you have done differently? And those are some of the things that Mike and I are going to talk about today. And his story about going from analog to digital, because that is really a big conversation today with many people out there. And the reason I don't know who saw my fence video, sitting on the fence. Anybody see that video? No. Well, it was a lot of people that I talked to are sitting on the fence. They're waiting, and you know, they think the technology is not quite there, or they're waiting for other reasons. Everybody has their own sort of reason for waiting for whatever they're waiting for in digital. So this is an important story I wanted to share, Mike to share, is because he was indeed an early adopter. And it's interesting to understand why people dive into it and why people are still waiting. So I think the more we share information and the more we are open and honest with others, it's only going to benefit the industry as a whole. So that's sort of the reason why we are here today on Keeping It Real from Keeping Crescent. That's my new crescent, thus the name Keeping It Real from Keeping Crescent. So yeah, we have a few other people that have joined. Wilson, where are you from?
Toronto.
Okay, nice, welcome. So just so everybody knows, and I'll go over this at the beginning of the program as well, we have a chat box on the right-hand side. when Mike and I start, having our chat, we'll all be muted except Mike and I, but you're free to chat in the chat box, either privately to an individual or to the whole group. But just so you know, I have posted my contact information and also Mike's contact information as well. And that's there for you for a reference if you need it. So that's information for you. So Mike, did you have a storm last night in Olds?
Actually, it got really cloudy and stuff, but we didn't get any major weather. So we've been kind of in the middle of the storms that have been going on in Alberta here lately. But
wow, we had a thunder crashing storm last night. It was really quite amazing. It was a heavy duty storm. The lightning show was unbelievable.
yeah, that's what they're saying on the news this morning. I was watching the news and they were talking about the storm you guys had for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky out this way for sure.
Well, good for the farmers though, out there. Not so much here.
That's right. So I kind of wanted to just chime in a little bit too. So everybody that's joined in, at any point in time, if you have questions, I know everyone's going to kind of be on mute, but there's the chat box. I know Bonita will be monitoring questions. Feel free. This is an open conversation. I mean, I'm not here to ramble on steady myself. So hopefully everybody will chime in and we can have discussions and chat about different ideas and concepts of how digital is going to go. I mean, it's a new learning curve for a lot of us, and hopefully everyone's on board to share some information as we go through this. So that'll be cool. Anyway, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we want to keep this, like I said, we want to keep it open and honest. We want to make it valuable for you and, hopefully answer some of the burning questions that are out there. And we have a few that Mike and I are going to cover. But again, if you have something that you wanted to ask throughout the program, just type in the chat box. We can always go back and pick out the questions depending on how much time we have at the end. Maybe there'll be some live questions that we can put everybody. You can unmute yourself and ask the question live and Mike can answer you. So lots of opportunity here today. It's going to be about 45 minutes and then a Q&A at the end. So just know that we will have time for the question and answer at the end of the program, and we should be all wrapped up certainly in an hour. That's sort of our goal. So you know the time frame.
How many people did Bonita were registered? Do you know?
25.
25? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep. I was advertising on Instagram on the Bonita from VITA page, and then also on my personal Facebook page. And then I also have a Bonita from VITA Facebook page as well. So if you're not already following me and you're an Instagram user or a Facebook user,
Better get on that.
Better, yes. I always like to post current things. Oh my goodness, now we have a kitty cat. That is the sweetest. Awesome. We have just such a wide range of viewers today.
That's right.
Exciting. Our age range is from 4. How old are you? Oh, from the age of 5? From the age of 5 to probably close to 60. So we've got a great age range. Pretty impressive. And we have actually crossed the species area from
That's right.
Homo sapiens to the feline species as well. Look at everyone's interested in keeping it real.
My son wanted to introduce his cat.
Very nice. What's your cat's name?
Dad, so much.
Her name's Shadow.
Shadow. Okay. And what's your name?
Emmett.
Pardon me?
Emmett.
Henry?
Emmett.
Emmett.
Emmett. Oh, Emmett. Well, nice to meet you, Emmett. And thank you for introducing Shadow to everyone. That's great.
Future denturist.
Well, being a denturist is sure fun, right? and get all messy in the back of the lab.
Okay, I'm gonna shut the video off now.
Bye, Emmett. That was nice.
Bye.
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 Nice. Well, we've come to a good start, Mike. Almost there. A couple more minutes. We'll start at 11 as keep everybody going. And throughout the program, too, people can sign in whenever they're able to. They can jump in. There's nothing that's locked or anything. So
Yeah, for sure.
We have a few more people. We'll start in about a minute at 11 a.m. A few more people. Welcome for those who have joined. I have put the contact information in the chat room. Can you all see the contact information for those who just came in? I'm not sure if I will repost the contact information. Ah, thank you, Patricia. All right. Great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. It's 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Welcome to Keeping It Real, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm your host, Bonita from VITA, and I'm delighted today to have my first guest, Mike Gayle from Olds Denture and Implant Center. So just a few housekeeping items. You're all muted right now to keep the meeting audible and to reduce the background noise. We will go through a chat session with Mike and understanding a little bit about his journey from analog to digital. And then at the end, there will be an opportunity to have a question and answer. And throughout our discussion, feel free to make some notes in the chat box, and we can always refer to those questions when we come to that section, just so you don't forget about your question if you'd like to do that. And depending on our time, we might be able to have some audio questions as well. And Mike will be doing some screen sharing to show some of his work. And depending on sort of where this goes, we'll have a nice interactive and very real conversation. As you can see, Mike is videoing from the back of his clinic. So that's about as real as we can get, which is awesome. And we anticipate about a 40-minute conversation with Mike about his decision to switch from analog to digital and why he felt it was the right direction for him. We'll talk a little bit about his journey, which started a few years ago, and you know, what made him go to this fully digital, very clean-looking lab in his clinic today. And so please help me welcome Mike Gayle from Olds Denture Clinic. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good, good. So the purpose of this is just really to understand your journey from analog to digital. You've been a denturist for how many years?
Oh, 25-ish. a while, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's not easy to change the way you do things, to teach an old dog a new trick, so to speak. So I'm interested to hear, and everybody is here really interested to understand your journey. So tell us a little about, where did you start? How did you get to where you are today? And a little bit, what made you make that change?
Yeah, probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago, when Avident kind of first came into the market, we were at a seminar. It was one of our annual meetings that we were at, and Avident did a presentation. So I kind of was interested at that point as far as what they were all about, the digital concept, scanning, design. Then it was a lot of scanning, and you design, you'd ship things back to them, and then they would send you the case back. So it was a little bit of back and forth, but that's kind of when it started. So I jumped in with Avident, again, 6, maybe 7 years ago. And that went on for about 4 years. We did a bunch of different cases, from immediates to completes, and went through the process with them. And it was good. I mean, the concept was there. I think they were one of the very first, digital full denture processes that were available. And there was some work to do. I mean, there was a lot of little quirks that didn't work. I mean, occlusion was kind of was iffy at times. The function was a little bit iffy at times. So I mean, it was a learn curve for sure. And it took us a while to figure out how to tweak things and work with them. I was blessed enough to that they invited me down to Scottsdale, so I would actually take some full cases with me that I've done, that I did analog at that point, using the Arcostigma, fully balanced conval cases. We'd take them with us, we'd scan them there and show the difference from an analog function case to what they were milling at that point, and we were actually making dentures with. So for me, at the end of it, it was a workflow issue for me, really, at that point. I was resetting cases, and nothing bad to say about the whole program. It was just that it didn't work for us as a workflow. So we ended up going more back into the analog process. So that was kind of the beginning. I mean, it was the first dabble with it. It was interesting. It was cool. It was a learn curve. And as we all know, anybody that's working digital now, it takes a while. I mean, it's not something you're just going to jump into and click a button and it's going to go digital. There's a workflow and learn curves to make sure we're working through. So that was kind of the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, you talked a little bit about the learning curve and the fact that, some think that the thought process is, if you start scanning and you start going digital, that tomorrow you'll be full on digital. It sounds to be that it is a bit of a educational process, a bit of you kind of have to, you've talked before about a different thinking pattern, because you have to take your hands off of so many of the other processes. So there is a bit of a learning curve, and I think we have to, if you're wanting to get into digital, you have to accept that. And pretty early in the stage, you have to realize that it will be a learning curve. So do you think you can still, while you're learning, can you still do a little bit like I have some people that have done, some customers, they devote Digital Friday. So every Friday they devote to digital, and then everything else to just keep with their business flowing, they still do in the analog way. Is that something that you would think it would be possible, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's a great starting point. I mean, for me, when we decided to go with the system that we have here in the office now, we were all gung-ho right up before the COVID, the pandemic hit us, and then everything kind of stopped. So, fortunately, I guess for me, at some point, it was everything was dropped off on my doorstep, and all the boxes, and we just were looking at them. So we started unpacking things, putting things together. Through the COVID break, it was a great opportunity to learn, study with it, practice with it. Alma Gerbach was really good as far as some training. So we did a lot of just virtual training with using TeamViewer, that kind of stuff. So it was good. We had a lot of time to just kind of play and dabble with it. We didn't get a lot of live patient cases through at that point, because it was all just kind of practice cases that they had.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you think your practice is running how it's running, and everyone's practices are different, for me personally, I mean, we're still going to do analog. I mean, you still got to do some cases that way. It's not always going to be digital. That's for me, that's how it's going to work anyway. I think it's important that everybody does take time to learn and practice. It's, again, like you said, it's not something for me anyway. And I first want to admit I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed all the time either, but I consider myself pretty smart at what I do. But it's going to take a long time to learn. It's going to take a process. I mean, you know, we know some of the guys out there that have been doing digital now for over a year, and when you talk to them, the Nathan Hoppers and Esther and a bunch of those people, they it takes a while. You know, it's a learning curve. It's not going to be just instant. So what I do with the system that we have here, we still have to get to a bite stage. So we're still working intraorally. We're still taking impressions. We're still taking final impressions. We're still taking a bite. I do a pin tracer using the Arcus Stigma for digital condyle records. On top of that, you mount the case and then we're scanning. So with the MAP 600, the Alma Gerback system, you have to have it mounted in an articulator to scan it. So we're still scanning at that phase, and then we're going digital. Now, that being said, do we have to go to that extreme? No. I mean, everyone's workflow is different. Some people will take impressions in a denture and a bite, and mount it on an articulator, and away you go. So that's simple.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And just, you're also talking about what I have learned too. There are many different ways to do this. Like, there's lots of different ways to peel a carrot. And as long as you end up with what you're satisfied with and what you're happy with is really the most important thing. And along the change, just like you did when you graduated from school and you started to work in a clinic, everybody has kind of their own way of doing things, and you learn along the way. And I mean, fortunately, there's a lot of education available in the digital space. So you are able to join a webinar, take a course, listen to other people. There's, you know, Facebook pages, a lot of education is being shared. And then there's also flexibility within going analog. And one of the questions I had for you is how do you give up that connection with your patient, and then also the connection of doing the hands-on, because that's hard to give that up, that control over what you have. But you still have that patient connection, don't you? Because you're still seeing your patient, you're still having that face-to-face time, which is very important for that customer relationship and patient relationship as well. So that doesn't sound like that will be going away in the digital world.
Yeah, no, I you know, for the most part, you're still going to see your patients. You're still, you know, you're still doing a consultation. You're still doing a treatment plan. You're still, you know, there. And, you know, if you're only going to offer digital dentures and that's all you're going to offer, that simplifies your consults and your treatment planning for the patient. But we're still going to offer, you know, an analog process to people if that's what they want, and digital as well. Yeah, it's, when you think of, you kind of lost me there for a second. But when you think of giving up your hands-on stuff, you are and you're not. If you really think about designing digitally, you're still. When I've been designing anyway, I really think about what I'd be doing on the lab bench. You know, when I'm moving teeth and you're tweaking a setup, you're still visualizing it as if you would be doing it in a lab on an articulator. So you have to look at it. It's three-dimensional. It's going to look different when you angle the teeth. Sometimes the angle, you know, when we set at the lab, you're going to have the perfect angle of the teeth. When you're doing it digitally, because it's kind of 3D, it's hard to kind of visualize that at times. So that, I think, for me, was the hardest part, is trying to get your mind to play that trick to switch it to the other side, right? So we're still going to see our patients. We're still going to do some analog work. We're still going to do some hand skills. At the end of the day, the reasoning for me was simply I wanted to limit the amount of lab process. Really kind of so sitting down and doing a wax setup and setting the teeth, doing a wax of getting it ready for the mouth. I'm really picky when I do that. So I'm still about an hour and a half to get through it. I mean, I know some guys can hammer out a setup in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and that's cool. I'm not that guy because I'm pretty picky, but so we're still, the time saving, the processing time. If you're doing pack techniques, as we talked about earlier, Bonita, that, you know, to process a pack a case, I mean, to do 5 or 6 sets of teeth in an afternoon is 4 hours. Every time you're done boiling out, doing all the different processes. Here, we're going to be able to design, get the production, set the mill, and walk away. And you can still be doing you can still do more consults or see more patient time. I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is simple. For us as denturists, practitioners, we're not making money sitting in the lab at our bench. We're just not. I mean, the more patients you see, the more contact you have with patients, that's where the money's being made, not sitting at a bench. So if we can streamline things, I mean, I'm personally working on some different workflows and processes, kind of, instead of taking an analog process that might be 5 different visits and shortening it into 3, doing 2-in-1s and some different, I've been kind of sampling with some different types of trays and different kind of bite blocks and techniques to try to streamline it a bit. So yeah, so I ramble a little bit, so I apologize on that, but reality, yeah, you're still going to have patient contact for sure. And at some level, we're still doing some analog work, because I said I have to get to a bite stage and have it mounted. So I'm still doing some lab process to get to the scanner. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this digital world is still evolving and changing, and will continue to evolve and change, just like the rest of the world, you know, going to artificial intelligence where a computer is doing the work for you, which is basically what's happening here. And I mean, I remember back as a dental technician when, you know, we stopped waxing up crowns and we started to digitally make them. That was, like you said, the leap of faith and the different thinking process. But it becomes routine after time. And then you also mentioned the fact that you can shorten the amount of appointments, which might be attractive in this new day that we have, this new age of COVID and asepsis and all of that. So I think that would be actually a benefit if you could reduce the amount of patient visits. That would definitely be an advantage. And that's something that you could definitely do in a digital format. Is that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, with the different workflows that we all can do, going digital is going to save that time. I've been talking to my patients about digital and digital work, and they're pretty excited about it. I mean, they're pretty stoked about trying it. And, you know, we've got a few cases that we've started now that we're getting going, and now that we're finally back at practice.
Right.
And I agree. I think the less patient contact at this point, especially with the pandemic that we're facing and that we're all facing across Canada, is that if we can limit the exposure for ourselves and for our patients and protect the public at the same time, that's a huge benefit. And any way that we can do that is going to be huge. I mean, there's cases where patients come in, they want 0 changes to the teeth. So at that point, I mean, is there anything wrong with just taking an impression of the denture and taking a bite and scanning it and duplicating it? Not at all, right? As long as there's no major changes and you're comfortable with it as a practitioner, the patient's comfortable with that process, by all means, that's cool, right?
Yeah, that is very cool, for sure. No, absolutely. So your journey started with the Avident, that was 6 or 7 years ago. But for somebody that might be sitting on the fence and maybe wanting to dip their toes into it rather than going headfirst into the deep end and investing in the whole system, which we see in the back of your clinic there, where would be a good place for them to start? In your opinion, what would be something that would be comfortable for someone to sort of get a feel for what digital is all about? What would you think would be a good place for them to start?
Well, first off, you know, I spent a lot of time just, you know, researching, going to conventions, you know, out of the norm too. Like there's conventions all over the place. I mean, I know the Perfect group in Kelowna, they put on a great digital kind of seminar that they put on once a year.
Yeah.
Great way to go and meet with people and talk to people. You know, taking courses. There's Chicago. There's all sorts of major events that you can go to. I would definitely, anybody that's kind of interested in digital, is before you do anything, educate, talk to people, you know, try to get involved in chat groups, Facebook groups, and research, really. I think that's one of the biggest things that I find, and I've been that way for years before. I'm a pretty open book now. Anybody that knows me knows I ramble on, and I'm a pretty open book type of character. But I think as practitioners, there's a sense of, and hopefully nobody takes this the wrong way, but there's a sense of pride. You know, we all have that. We don't want to admit if we don't know something, or we're scared to ask for help, or whatever the case is. And I think when you look at the people that have gone digital, again, the Esthers, the Nathans, Gary Salaway, you know, there's a whole bunch of people out there that have been digital for a while, and they're always willing to share information and talk to you. So that's the first step. You know, let's not be scared to open up and be honest. If we don't know something, we need to ask. And that's a big fear for all of us is to do that.
Sure.
So that's first.
Absolutely. That's being vulnerable, and that's hard to be vulnerable.
It is, yeah, for sure. I think, and that's the first step is knowing that you're going to need help. You can't do this on your own. You're not going to hide in your back in your office and all of a sudden open the doors and be digital. It's not going to work that way. but reality is, maybe starting with a scanner. There's all sorts of them out there. There's different scanners, Dentsply Sirona. There's 3Shape. There's Alma Gerbach. There's everything's out there. Start with a scanner, maybe just doing scanning first. A little bit of software design. You could design cases. I know a lot of guys that have a scanner. Again, going back to the Perfect Boys in Kelowna, George and Steve. You could scan things. You can send it their way. They'll design it for you. They'll do all the work for you and send it back to you. That's a great way to start until you get comfortable in learning it and having those discussions that are needed to get started in it. I think is the best way to go. To jump right in to get a mill and everything, probably not. I kind of went that way because I knew this is something that I want to pursue. I want to make sure that my practice is established with that. And as we move forward, I want to be able to help people and train people and do some milling if we need to do outsourcing. Hopefully we can get into that down the road. And also, for younger generation dentures that are coming out after us, having it in your office is going to be an enticing thing for someone else to want to learn with you as they come forward. So hopefully that answered it a little bit, but yeah, I think just, education, being vulnerable, being honest, asking questions, and start small if that's what you need to. I kind of went in with both feet just because that's typically what I do. And we'll find out how good it's going to be in a while. I'll let you know.
But no, and that's really good to understand that was the best fit for you and knowing yourself that this is the best way to go. But I do agree with education being number one. Going with a scanner, again, because I'm a dental technician, I look back at, when we started with the CAD/CAM and, the Sirona system was the one to get started with. And back in the day when things started to switch from analog to digital in a dental technician's world, there were milling centers. And you did touch a little bit about the milling center there, but that's sort of where everyone started because you would look at how much work you would have that you could go into digital with. So you would take your cases, you would scan them you'd start off with your scanner, then you would send it out to a milling center, outsourcing it. You would get back the restoration at that time, and then you would go and do stain and glaze and send it to the dentist. So this is a very similar way that you could get into digital, is going with a scanner, getting comfortable with that, and then sending it to a milling center, to somebody that you trust, that that is going to look at your case and maybe even have a bit of a mentorship going on with that, and would help you along your learning journey. And sort of like you had a lot of people that helped you along the way, that you could have that same sort of experience and still have that journey to the end point. And then you mentioned the software systems. And one of the things that I do tell my customers is, before you invest in something, do your research, do your education, and think about where you want your business to be. Are you just looking at complete dentures? Do you want to mill out implants? Do you want to do partials? Like, what do you want to do with your digital system at the end? And often think about the end point and work backwards. Where do you need to start, knowing that, this point here is where you want to end up, and make sure you're investing in the system that will get you there. Because I see a lot of people start with something and they go, oh, wow, I wanted to do this. And yet the system that they've invested the time and energy and money won't get them to where they eventually want to be. So I think that's a really important step. And I think you and I have talked about this too. You knew exactly what you wanted to do from a business perspective, from a patient perspective, and then you found the system that fit into your vision of where you want it to be. Is that true?
Yeah, that's fair for sure. I've always been a very, a business model minded practice. I always try to create a business model that's going to be sustainable and that we can reach out for 5-10 years and see the end game with it. So, yeah, I was, a little bit about myself, and I know I'm going to kind of just jump in here, but for me, it was, I like legalized occlusion. I like VITA teeth. I like the arcus stigma. I like condylar balancing. I mentioned Nathan Hoffer a couple of times. He was one of the guys that first introduced me to the Arcostigma, and it changed how I practice. It changed how I designed. It gave me a whole different realm of why we do what we do and function. So taking all of those processes into an analog business model workflow, and then when I started looking into digital again, when everybody was jumping back on board going digital, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to really get serious about it again. We looked at different processes and different software designs and different companies. And at the end of the day, for me, the Alma Gerbach VITA VIONIC system, it just fit. I mean, everything that I was doing analog already fits into that digital process that they've already created. So for me, it was more of a plug and play than and easier to learn as well, when everything is kind of do this step A, B, C, D all the way through. And with the software design, there's wizards that kind of promote us and help us along the way to tell you what to do next. So for me, it was again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and I always say that to anybody that I'm truly honest about that. I wanted something that was going to simplify how I did things, and the workflow that I was doing analog fit into that really well. So that was kind of my decision. And other guys, I know there's other people that go straight ExoCAD, and they can have different components and different company parts and pieces, and they make it work, and that's good too. There's nothing wrong with however you decide to do it. I think there's benefits to either one, and it's just finding what you're comfortable with and what's going to work best for you.
That's great. And
really,
thanks for being honest and keeping it real.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's great. Now, I see the whole system behind you, and you had it all set up, and I know we've had lots of conversation about, you had to change your lab, and, you needed a certain compressor and all that. I've had those conversations with you and numerous other people. So I'm going to ask you, looking back at like what has happened now, what would you do differently if you would have had the chance to do that? I mean, hindsight is always, a good thing to look at.
Yeah. Reality, more space. I definitely am small in my design area here, where I'm blessed, I guess, in a way. My wife works right next door in her business, and there's some vacant space over there. So I might be creating a digital work area on right next door to my office here. Making sure, first off, when you look at the systems, I mean, it's going to take space. The mills are big, the scanners. I mean, by the time you get the full layout, you need a separate room almost. And we're pretty tight in here. It's going to work for the short term, but we're definitely going to be looking for more space. Before you start into the digital realm, I think, researching what the sizes of everything is going to be, making sure your practice is big enough to support that is the first step. We have a pretty small office here in Olds. There's not a lot of extra room and space, so we had to kind of make do with it. Meeting with an IT guy, making sure your networks are proper. We ran into that right away. We thought we had the right network, and we had our internet and everything proper, but when we got set up and running, we had to reroute everything and bring in a whole separate system. So that was a learning curve for me as well. Air, making sure you got a proper compressor. We did have a big dental compressor, and it was fair enough that with the Motion 2 mill that I have, it does have enough output source that'll run the mill for us. So making sure that's, you got the right compressors. I was, when I sat down with the group and started putting it together, I had a lot of help from Ramon Flores and some of the guys from AG. So they really kind of walked me through and baby gloved it for me and held my hand along the way. And I'm truly blessed to know those guys, and thank you for doing that for me. But I needed that because I didn't know, I mean, I thought I knew, but what you think, is all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to make sure that you have the right space and how the layout of everything is going to work. So if I was going to do it again, I would probably have built a separate room, have it set up, and really kind of walk through and measured everything out, spaced it out properly. And I'm sure some of the other guys that you'll talk to have I've seen some of the other offices, and they got big separate rooms for all their stuff, and making sure you have enough design area. So yeah, I think the networking is huge, because everything's going to run on a network. Airflow for your mills, enough room and for the whole process of it, for sure.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's great information.
Yeah.
Now, we have some time, and I know that you have been playing with a few cases. We were looking at one together. Would you be able to share your screen and just kind of show maybe the model diagnosis or whatever part of the digital process that you would think the group would find interesting?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll just see if I can bring it up here for us. So I did a case this morning that we started scanning in. So with the software program that I have, the first one we'll show you here is kind of the prescription, the first thing that we do. So with the on the right hand side, there's all the actions. So there's the scanning, the serial map, and then the mind is the design, matching it together, and then the motion is the mill. The next N5100 is there for digital printing. So this is kind of the screen when you first open it up that you go through. So you set your case up. You know, we have our name of the clinic, the patient name, the who's doing the work, and you start your design. So with this one, this is a full upper and lower case. See down on the bottom here. So we scan the upper jaw. That was the upper jaw scan there. And then go back here, get the lower jaw scan. And this is all done within the articulator itself. So that you can see the scans are pretty accurate. They come pretty clean. We still have to use like a barrier spray, white powder spray. So that was just kind of the prescription, just the first phase of it. Get out of there and bring up another screen here for us. Sorry, bear with me. So this is this one here. We started doing the model analysis. So this is pretty cool. So when we go back, we can go back a couple steps maybe just to show people here.
And that's the cool thing in digital. You can toggle back and forth and you don't lose anything. And, you know, you can go back and modify things. It's just not set in stone, right? Flexibility within it. Yeah,
you kind of jump back and forth. Some of them I think are easier than others, but this one we can kind of move back and forth. So this was just kind of the beginning scan. And we did the model analysis. We walked through the process. And then I was going to take us back to where we'll see here.
It's thinking.
Just thinking, yeah, there we go. So we went through the whole model analysis, and then at this point, we're getting ready to select the teeth. So with the Gerback system, they have a tooth library. There's a bunch of different ones in there. There's VITA, there's the Pala, there's a whole bunch of different teeth selections. I'm a big VITA guy, so we would do that. Up here, we can bring in back to our aesthetic plates if someone wants to see kind of that was the original scan. So we're kind of creating our plane of occlusion, center line, and we did the model analysis. And then we're going to select teeth. So we'll get that out of the way. So just so we can kind of see how this works, if we were going to go in here, we'd pick our teeth that we wanted. So we're going to come down. There we go. Let's go back up here for a second. Sorry. I'm using a wireless mouse, so this is a little more hard to clear out. There we go. On upper anterior. So this case, we were going to use a T46 VITA. There we go. So it'll tell you, like on the side here, when we select the teeth, the numbers that we see, there's a minus 3.3, you know, negative minus 8.1. So it's just the size of the teeth. So it kind of lets you know if you're right in the wheelhouse or if they're going to be too big or too small. So we're going to go T46s, L33 lowers, placement of second molars if possible. You can either select if you want to have, a lot of the digital design softwares will take you to the 6s instead of the 7s. So you can kind of get in that way. If you want to have your full molar system on there, is all you have to do is select on the sheet here. So look, we'll say always, sure, just for now, okay? And then we go place posteriors, place anteriors, and that selects the teeth. So it's based on your model analysis, it's going to select teeth and place them within those realms of where your models are sitting. So as far as buccal allowances. And it kind of hand selects the teeth. From there, we can start playing around with design if we wanted to. I'm just going to bring up our upper scan here. Sec. Patience with me, please. There we go. Yep. Yeah. So then if we want to kind of spin that to the side, so we can kind of see what that looks like from a side view, like that. So now we can move this case where we want it to be. We can move the teeth, and labially. We can move them lingually. It kind of shows us, I selected my canine position. I'll just put the mouse on it here. So that was where I selected canine position and then the first bicuspid. So it's pretty close. I mean, you can see where they select the teeth and place them. It's pretty close to So I'm pretty comfortable with the size. I might tweak it a little bit as we would go through. So I don't want to get too much into design because I mean, we'll get lost in this in no time flat. So, but anybody that wants to sit down after or reach out again when this is done and go through some cases, we could do some design and playing around with it. I'm no expert at this either yet, guys. So just bear with me. It's a learning curve. We only did about 3 or 4 cases since we went back to work with COVID. So, so yeah, that's cool.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for sharing. So we had a question come up, and the question was that what system were you using? So I know it's exocad, but this is specific to AG. So what is the proper name for it?
So Ceramil. So Alma Gerbach it's a Ceramil system.
Okay.
So it's Ceramil software, Ceramil design. That's who they're so. And it's not truly exocad. It's exocad based. So what Alma Gerbach does, they took exocad and they kind of tweaked it to fit into their own kind of system, right? So so it is an exocad based program, but it's called Ceramil.
Okay, cool. So we have a couple of minutes before we're going to open up to the Q&A, but is it possible, like, is your camera mobile? Can you go through, can you show us the scanner and the mill? Like, can you just a visual for us to see what they actually look like, and then your printer?
Yeah, I can. I got a buddy here to help me hold the camera because I'll have it all over the place. So I'll just get my chair out of the way here. Yeah, so anyway, so we'll just kind of spin it around so we can show just turn it around this way, just real quick. Yeah. So this is the computer. So it comes with its own PC, its own monitor, your software design. And then we kind of cruise back over this way. This is the MAP 600. So this is the MAP 600 scanner that we have, if everyone can see that. Yeah. So this one, I like this because it scans articulator. So we can put a whole articulator into the scanner and scan that. So when we get to the bite stage, we're putting our Protar 7s in there and just do that. Just give me one second. Jill, can you grab the Protar 7, that articulator? I'll just show you kind of how it fits in there. It's pretty cool. So we'll scan the Protar with the bite, the rims and everything in there. We scan that first, and then it'll do a vestibule scan on the models and everything else. So it's pretty good. Any size articulator fits pretty good. I use the Protar 7s. It's just kind of it fits in there. You know, it's pretty tight, but they work. So that's the MAP 600. Next to that, we have our Motion 2 mill. So let's open this up for everybody. So this is a single access. So it's one base at a time. With Alma Gerbach, it's the Motion 2, and then they have the Matic, which is a really big mill that you can put up to 32 pucks or something in all at once. So so this is the Motion 2 mill. We've done a couple cases with it. It works pretty slick. It's accurate. We have the 3D printer, NextDent 5100 3D printer here next to it. Our mixers over here. We have our curing box here on the side right here for curing. And then we have an ultrasonic over by the sink behind my my computer there that we use for acrylizing. So yeah, that's kind of the system. It's tight. It works for us. And yeah, we're excited to get it rolling.
Well, it's interesting to see how, like, now you can kind of get a visual of your workflow. You have your scanner, you have your mill, you have your printer for printing try-ins or whatever you want to print. And okay, it's a little bit smaller than what I actually had envisioned, even though you say you need a bigger space. But yeah, nice. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's true. So we're going to open it up to question and answer. Does anybody have any questions for Mike today? You can unmute yourself or you can type it in. Oh, we have a question. So how much time does it take to mill out, I guess, a full upper lower with your teeth?
With the teeth, typically it's about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes to mill a denture. So, really for 2 of them, you're going to be, 3 hours kind of by the time you're done. And you got to remember, no matter how simplified we think it is, I mean, we could go and spend $85,000 or $90,000 and buy one of the Matics and have it all set up with, 25 different dentures milling at once, which is cool, but it's an investment. So with this, after every time we mill a denture, it still takes 15, 20 minutes of recycle time. We have to take the handles off. We have to change the pucks out. You got to put a new puck in. You got to put your milling arms back in, change burrs. So there's a process. It's still going to take some time, but you know, for me, again, it was, if we're going to cure dentures and let them sit overnight and then have to, you know, break them out and trim and polish. I mean, this is done. I mean, when you take these out of the mill, I mean, they're almost ready for the mouth. You do is light polish on them. I mean, they come out that smooth.
Yeah, and I have seen, that's what I was really impressed with when I saw the results of the milled base. It was pristine. Like you said, all you needed is high shine. You bond the teeth in and you just high shine it and it was good to go, which was really, really cool for me to see at the first time I saw it. So then another question we have here is what type, you mentioned the indicating spray that you needed to spray on there. You needed, I guess, a non-reflective surface spray.
Non-reflective spray, to be honest with you, I use Gold Bond.
Yep, that's
Foot
what
spray.
I've heard. Yep.
It works. It's
Foot
cheap.
spray.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, it works and it's cheap. I mean, you can buy specific sprays, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. So I just use Gold Bond and it works. It works really well. It's easy to wash off.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty slick.
Cool. That's keeping it real. But yeah, I have heard that foot spray because I'm trying to think of that one element in there that makes the camera pick it up. I can't remember what it's like, magnesium citrate or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a product that you're looking for that makes that model.
You can, a lot of people are using the high dent spray that you use for spraying on a denture to check for adjustments or pressure points.
Oh,
It's pretty expensive to use. I mean, it's not cheap. This stuff's way cheaper. So.
and you have to use, like, if you think about, you're spraying the whole surface of the model.
Yeah.
So
And the wax rim. So it's you have to spray that.
it's a lot of spray.
Through Sinclair, I bought they had some scannable bite reg and scannable impression materials and stuff like that. So there's some, I think it's going to get more and more where you'll be able to, the more digital you go, the more materials you can use.
Yeah, no, of course. And then of course, if you have to spray something intraorally, of course, you would use an intraoral specific type of spray. This
Exactly.
or in the lab, it's not touching a patient, there's no contact. So this isn't something where we need to have a concern with. That's great. Any other questions? Would anybody like to unmute themselves? It's open mic time. So open mic for Mike.
Yeah, share, please. I'm tired of talking.
Yeah, let's go. Let's have some questions out there.
Hi. So you look like you have a pretty good amount of space there. I'm just curious why you would want to, or what you're planning on adding to increase, like, for the requirement for extra space, I guess is my.
So I have a sink where I'm staying. There's a sink right next to me and an ultrasonic here. You don't really need to. It's just if, you know, I have another denturist in the office with me. So if we were both working in this space, it would get pretty crowded. So I think just more of an open concept to have counters all the way around the room per se, a couple of design stations, and just more space. So you have two people working in here, scanning stuff in and working on, you know, design. It's a little more, that's the only reason why. I mean, this works. It's tight. It works. If it's just one person doing it and you're not having any other practitioners or technicians involved, then a space like this would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Anyone else? It's your opportunity.
Even if it's to heckle me, that's good.
But one of the things I know, this is something that I appreciated when we went into CAD/CAM from a lab perspective, that you could scan all day long. And let's say, Mike, for instance, you were going to the cabin on the weekend. You just take your laptop, all of your cases, and you could actually design and do this remotely. So remote work, which a lot of us are doing right now, is really possible. And depending on your workflow, you could create all of these work opportunities from your home, from the cabin, from really anywhere. You could be in Italy. Your associate could send you a case. You could design the case and send it back. That's one of the realities of where we are going. Remote is an option. It's very attractive to be able to do that. And especially for you as a business owner, let's say you're away for a couple of weeks. Normally it's hard as a business owner to rely on your staff, but now they can send you, hey, Mike, take a look at this case. I'm not too sure. This is Mrs. Jones. What do you think about the setup? And perhaps some, previous experience and history about this patient. we can go there. Well, I know Mrs. Jones, she likes to tweak that lateral this way. So you can actually work in tandem, but work remotely, which in my opinion is a really cool thing to do for this type of work.
Yeah, I know with our system here, especially the software design all starts with they call it a dongle, but it's like a USB card that you get. And you have to have that card with you at all times if you're to work the software. So what we are doing now is with the other dentures that we have here, we're going to get another dongle card, like another SIM card basically is what it is. So that she can have access to one, I have access to one. We could still work on the same case because we access the whole system. But you're right. I mean, that's the coolest thing is, we could scan 5 or 6 or 8 cases that we want to design, and I could go away for a weekend, take my laptop with me and design cases and come back ready for production. So
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool stuff. And sharing files with each other or sharing files with other practitioners. I mean, you can design it, you can send them a file and they can open it up and do the production for you or whatever the case may be. So it's pretty cool stuff for sure.
It is cool. And we have another question from a person, but I just want to say this morning I was on LinkedIn and Tanya Little from BC, she's another advocate and early adopter of digital. She was showing us how to do an immediate, and she had just a 1.5-minute video. It was super cool. I've never actually seen an immediate being done. And she said at the beginning, she was a little apprehensive because I think it was a class 3 or something. And I thought, oh, wow, that was actually really interesting to see how automatic and how easy it was instead of taking the saw and, breaking off the teeth, how we used to do it. So anyways, it was interesting for me to see that. I hadn't seen that yet. So another question we're going to ask about the scanning and all that. So do you scan the models and rims individually or articulated together on the articulator? Do they have to be articulated? Like, talk a little bit about what that's like.
Yeah, they have to be articulated for the system that I have here. So we mount the case in an articulator. You scan the whole articulator first with the wax rims on, and that gives you what's called the aesthetic plate. So it gets your center line, the plane of occlusion, upper and lower together, mounted within the relationship of your OVD and your bite registration. And then the next step is we remove the wax plates or the wax rims off of the models. I leave the articulator in, just open it up, take them out, and then it scans the vestibular areas of the upper and lower. And after that's done, then we're scanning the models separately. We have another jig that you kind of put just the model on the matrix, put it in the scanner, and then it scans the surface area and everything on the model, the tissue surfaces. And then once that's done, then we're right into the design. That we saw that first video of the first step I showed with the aesthetic plates today brought that up. That's the first snapshot of it right there.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the question there. That's good. So the other thing I know about this system is that I thought was kind of cool. What articulator are you using, Mike? What did you say?
I use a ProTar 7.
So in the system, in the AG system, you can actually click a button and you could go a ProTar 7, you can go Stratus. You can actually click which articulator. I think there's like 6 or 7 of the most popular articulators. So then the visual comes up of the actual articulator. So that actually is really a cool option because it would be specific to your condylar adjustments and all of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so when we do the condylar balances, when we're doing it analog, we're setting the condyles on the articulator. Right, everyone can see that. We set the condyles on the articulator to the patient's actual condylar records. And then we set the case and we're going through our functioning. It's working as close as humanly possible that we can get it to be to the natural condyles. Those records that we get that we would record onto the articulator when we scan everything in and we're putting all our information in, there's a point in time where we actually take those records and apply it to the software. And then you hand select what articulator you're using, put in the records that you have. And then every time that you're going through the design and you get the T set or going through the function plans and it's moving, it's following what you would have as far as on your ProTar 7 or a Stratus or Artex or whatever you're using at that point.
Oh, very cool. Thanks. So we have a couple more questions and then that's going to be it. Our time will be up. So question number 1 is, what made you decide on the AG mill? What made that system right for you?
It was just kind of part of the plug and play. Again, going back to, again, the VITA VIONIC. I know Bonita doesn't want me to, this is supposed to be open for everything, but at the end of the day, for me, that was the selling point. For me, was the VITA VIONIC system. And VITA VIONIC was with AG, so it was just when I bought the system, I bought everything from software, scanner, mill, everything all as a package, and that was just part of the package. The Motion 2 for me was more about the cost effectiveness of it. To be brutally honest, it was the cost at that point. I wasn't prepared to invest another $90,000 or 80 grand or whatever it was US, which is more Canadian, over 100K Canadian for the Matic, and we didn't have the Matic is massive. I mean, it's about the size of this room behind me, virtually. It's huge. You need a absolute separate room for that. So for a starting point for me to get dabbling back into it, this made sense. It was all together as one plug and play system, and it virtually, you just plug the cords into each other and it communicates. It's again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I ended up doing it myself and it worked the first time, so I was impressed.
Well, which is cool because you were really on your own. It got shipped, it got at the door.
Yeah,
and
dropped off on the doorstep.
So that's actually a pretty attractive thing to understand, that it was actually doable all on your own with a little bit of video support, of course, from the awesome people at AG. And so the other thing is the startup cost for the software and a scanner. I know this is a bit vague, but what's the ballpark of getting started? You said a software and a scanner is a good place to start. So what does that look like from a dollar's point of view?
No, I'd have to, I mean, don't quote me on it because I don't have an invoice in front of me, but a software scanner, you're probably going to be 30, 25 grand, right?
Mm-hmm. And it also depends on what system you go with, because there are different, they cost different things, but that's a good ballpark, because when you start, like, what does it start? Are you looking at $50,000 or $20,000 or you don't know where you start, but at least that gives you an idea of what that investment would look like. So we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Mike Gayle, for sharing your experience and your journey from analog to digital. We really appreciate you being honest and keeping it real. And thank you everyone for joining the meeting today. We have our contact information on the side if you choose to reach out to contact to Mike or myself. And yeah, just wishing everybody a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend, and stay safe everyone, and keeping it real. Bye for now.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye, Mike.
Thank you.